They're bringing you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and their opinions on sports topics from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
Patrick Wheeler.
Let's stomp these dudes.
And Zach Lancaster.
Everyone is stupid except me.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about. Sport.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work. Show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it. I ain't playing with you. I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions. Let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that. Saying you the best. Stop that, phony. I am not that. What are y'all doing out here? What are y'all doing out here? Maybe you should spend a little less time with the women on your own.
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster, Thursday edition. Zach is literally thawing out over there.
Yeah, not
a little chilly. Still a little chilly.
I don't mind cold weather, but I don't like this cold weather. I don't like 2 to 3 weeks of consistent below freezing weather.
Yeah,
not a fan of it.
Getting a little extreme.
So there's a report. The city of Stillwater put out a release, maybe an hour or so ago, and they're talking about like the city is because of this weather, it's like unprecedented. They've purchased like snow removing tools and vehicles and stuff, but they don't have enough resources, or they won't have enough resources to be able to like plow residential areas or clear driveways if you get plowed in. And they're talking about like negative 30 wind chill over the weekend and into early next week. So they're like, just don't leave your house. Okay.
Just do not step outside.
I'm not doing. And they're like 10 to 15 minutes, and like you could experience hypothermia and frostbite, and I didn't vote for this.
Yeah,
I'm not happy right now.
Yeah.
Who do I need to speak to? Because this is horrible.
Oh man, it's no good. It's a little chilly out there. Back to 20 degrees right now, and that's going to be warm compared to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
so,
single digits for the lows over the weekend.
Not looking forward to it. So make sure you're staying warm. Make sure your heater's up to standard and good to go as well.
By the way, good luck trying to find de-icer.
Well, I'm sure
because there's none in Stillwater proper.
Salt is also probably gone.
Like I thought I was ahead of schedule. Like I went to the stores last night to just pick up like 1 can of de-icer.
Gone.
And maybe some salt. Like there is nothing. This isn't gonna work. But like I saw people buying like table salt. Like buy the big boxes of table salt because they think that's gonna help.
that's
they said buy salt. Good luck.
Wait, I'll be more specific on what salt you're supposed to buy there, people. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. It's still a good day though for sports. You know, we take a look at a lot of different things we got dropping today. Oklahoma State 2021 football schedule has been released. We'll take a look at that here in just a minute. OSU basketball back in action this weekend against Kansas State. They've had a little bit of a break here, and could be good. I mean, you know, at this point in the season, you're kind of dealing with some nicks and bumps on this team, like everybody else is. You'd love it this Saturday if MA and Ice were both close to 100%. And we kind of said, I don't know how close Ice is actually going to be to 100% the rest of the season, depending on how severe that foot is. He may not even play, so that will still be worth monitoring. But MA, hopefully he's good to go. Then the rest of, we always seem to wait at times too, because you never know if you're going to get a pop-up injury and or COVID-related issue towards the game. So we're always watching for that. But this is a good opportunity to get some time off before you go into Kansas State, Iowa State, which is a couple of solid games, as we mentioned as well, to kind of get your footing back underneath you, right? Because that Kansas loss stings. I mean, let's be honest, it does. It was a Kansas team that you should beat for a second time. It shouldn't have been that close, and then they should not have come out, won that. If you look at Oklahoma State, the talent they put out this year, but they have a good chance coming up here against Kansas State. It is interesting to note a couple of these players, like Tom said yesterday, that are going to be back for this matchup that OSU didn't face earlier on. And the freshmen have kind of been leading the way for Kansas State, if you can call, what type of leading the way they've had this year. Not great, but Nigel Pack, Selton Miguel, and you get Davion Bradford. They've collectively scored scored over 40% of the team's points this season. So they're asking for a lot from their young guys. And if you look at the opportunities that are there for OSU, you're talking about a chance down low to really make some noise, get the ball in the paint, spread it out from that direction. But this is an OSU squad, Zach, that I'm telling you, when I say yesterday, I don't know which one we're going to get sometimes. It was kind of like the football team last year, or this past season, you know. You didn't know which one you were going to get. You're hoping for a little bit more consistency now as you look at the stretch into this schedule, and it couldn't get any more tough. You ran into, we knew coming in this season COVID issues were going to be a problem for pretty much everybody at some point, but you ran into a spot where not only do you have to face Oklahoma twice, you're facing one of the better teams in the country now in Oklahoma twice in 3 days. That's not easy to do. Flip side for OU, they have to face Cade Cunningham and company twice in 3 days. You still have Baylor to go again. Texas Tech is no shoe. I mean, this is a really, really talented Big 12 conference this year, as we knew would probably be the case. So you're saying right now to your guys, if you're Mike Boynton, look, we got to knock these two out right now. Let's get Kansas State, let's get Iowa State, and let's get ready for this really thick schedule that we have coming up here, because it doesn't get any easier. And you're maybe not trying to put a ton of pressure at the same time, though. You have to be like, look, we have to make sure we end up like we went through the schedule the other day and said if you can go 4-2, right? That's a huge goal right there, and you're still solid for tournament play. You don't want to find yourself going on any type of skid where you drop a number of games here, and then not only all of a sudden is the season not looking good, your chances for a tournament bid are falling apart. So there is, in a way, pressure here to make sure you win some games down the stretch. It just so happens that with this weird season you have going on, it got a little tougher than we expected earlier on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, Tom was mentioning Kansas State, they're back to full health. They've lost at least 10 in a row. But you go back to Tuesday and they played Texas to 3. They narrowly escaped. Texas narrowly escaped a loss to Texas there. And now Texas, they're not playing their best basketball right now. But Oklahoma State, I think if you're Boynton, I think you kind of hit it there. I think you have to apply pressure. I think you have to. I think this week off here is really good for the team and allows them to kind of relax and recharge a little bit and try to recuperate any kind of nicks or bumps or bruises. But I think if you're Boynton and his staff, I think you have to make them understand. Listen, you've got what could be what looks like to be too easy, the two easier of the games coming up in the last 6. But, I mean, you look at Kansas State, they played Texas to 3. Iowa State nearly went to OU and went to Norman and nearly upset OU. So it's not like these two are, complete walkovers. You're going to have to play somehow.
They're not gimme games, and I would have to think that if I were betting, you look at the rest of the games all the way through.
I would take these two over the other ones.
Well, and they may be the two games that OSU is actually favored to win.
Yeah.
You look at the rest. You're going to favor them over Baylor, Tech, Oklahoma twice.
No, and that's what's going to be important with, like you said, like what OSU team shows up. Because if you get first half against West Virginia, you get the Texas upset. Now the turnovers, you got to eliminate those, but you get the Texas upset team. You get the first half against Texas earlier in the year. You get the first half against Baylor earlier in the year. You get the team that went down to Lubbock and beat Tech in overtime. Then I like Oklahoma State's chances to stick with the teams moving forward. But if you get the team that went to Iowa State and narrowly escaped Ames with a win, you look back earlier in the year, the team that narrowly escaped Manhattan with a win, they'll be in trouble. You need this Oklahoma State team to really come together and play some of their best basketball, and you have to eliminate turnovers. Knock on wood, but it seems like they've somewhat shored up their free throw issue. Missed free throws don't seem to be as big of an issue as they were, say, a month ago. But turnovers, while the numbers have been fairly consistent, I think the turnover issue is worse now, simply because you've gone through an entire season. You've got players that are now deep into their second season or deep into their first season. So it's not like the first couple of weeks of the schedule where you're trying to get adjusted to this play. We got 6 games left and we're still turning the ball over 18, 19, 20, 21 times. That's inexcusable.
Yeah,
You got to be able to fix that with these games coming up.
That can't happen. I mean, clearly the biggest thing that has to be fixed. I found a number today I thought was pretty interesting. They had led the Big 12 with 73.4 possessions a game, Oklahoma State. That's bumped up to 77 possessions a game. That tells you right there they're getting plenty of opportunities to score the basketball, which is a good thing, but you got to be able to take advantage, man, because when you get that many chances, we wonder why at times when we look at the runs that other teams go on, and you look at that number and say, okay, let's add that together. What do we get? Well, you're not taking advantage of a lot of the chances you get. Sometimes it's too quick into the shot clock type of thing, and I get it.
Up and turning it over.
Yeah, and they want to run, which is fine. That's their natural. That's Oklahoma State, and its natural state is running with the basketball, right, and getting shots out of transition, and I like to see that, but that's one of those things that, as you mentioned there, it can lead to extra turnovers, and I think it's more frustrating for some people, like we were mentioning yesterday with Tom, is the fact that if you look down, you actually break down these turnovers, they're not forced. That's kind of the thing. It'd be one thing if we're talking about they're trying to get it into tough spots and balls are being tipped or whatever. No. These are unforced in the open floor at times. You're not taking care of the basketball that well. You get a week basically right now to shore all that up against Kansas State, which a game you really should take advantage of and win, especially because you can dominate down low. I'm looking forward to this one because I think it's absolutely a bounce back opportunity for OSU to kind of not just be a bounce back, but to get on the right track, because we're talking about, as you said, it gets really, really tight after this, and if you can't get things going here, you have 6 games, right? Your season is going to be determined here in these last 6 games. I mean, and for most teams that's how it is, but you look at the Big 12 and you look at Baylor and you look at Oklahoma right now, I still think Texas is as good as advertised. I know they're playing, and they're not playing well right now. For instance, they're in a tough stretch here, but they're going to turn it around again. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, decently late in March make a run.
Well, and you hit on it there. These last 6 games are going to be crucial for their tournament bid. If you start off this 6-game stretch and you lose to a team that hasn't won in almost 2 months, I don't care how good Kansas State looks on the court. I don't care what they look like full strength. I don't care if they played Texas to 3. It doesn't matter. The tournament committee is going to look at this and they're going to say, you guys lost to a team that has 2 to 3 wins on the season. Like that's bad. That's a bad look. I don't care if Kansas State goes on to win the remainder of their games. It's not going to matter.
Yeah, and you're looking at TCU right now if you're Oklahoma State and saying, okay, please keep winning.
Please keep winning.
Like,
absolutely.
we need this. We need you guys to keep it on, keep the foot on the gas there. So, yeah, it's going to come down to a lot. We'll have a lot more on Oklahoma State basketball tomorrow. We'll have some more coming up later in the show. Take a look at this OSU football schedule that got dropped. First of all, Zach, I'll say it's great to see the 3 games at the top there that are out of the conference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have a normal-looking schedule back on the slate for Oklahoma State and all the Big 12 teams right now. Missouri State to start off, kicking off on September 4th. Tulsa, both of those at home. At Boise State, you get the battle on that blue field, which everybody loves, right? Are you a fan of that? No? Yeah,
I like the story of it.
The story's cool.
I like how they got to go out there and clean up waterfowl before the games. But, yeah, if you look at the schedule from top to bottom, this is actually one of the more favorable schedules that Oklahoma State's kind of had in a while. You get 7 home games. Most of those difficult games you're looking at. It's unfortunate that the 2 games that are going to be some of the toughest to win, you go to Austin and then turn around and go to Ames to play Iowa State.
That's a tough stretch back to back.
I'm not really looking forward to that, but you get 7 home games this year. You go to Morgantown, but, what's West Virginia going to look like? You go to Texas Tech, but, I mean, as long as you can score, you like the chances there. And you get OU at home. I think that right there, that's going to be a big one. You get OU at home. That game has been moved back to the end of the year where everyone loves Bedlam, the game before the Big 12 tournament, the Big 12 championship game. I like playing OU at the end of the year. I'm a fan of that. I don't like playing them in October.
No.
It's weird. I don't want to play them at the beginning of November. Baylor at home is going to be big. I think a full-strength Baylor, you get Dave Aranda with another year down in Waco. I think Baylor's going to be pretty tricky. Kansas State and Stillwater, that's good because if the projections that these universities and athletic programs are putting out are accurate and they are going to have full stadiums, the year out of COVID, the year where it's going to be a full stadium, I don't want to play in Manhattan.
It was tough enough this last year.
Yeah, Kansas State's impossible to play at, and homecoming, you get that's going to be a big one this year. Technically it's the 101st homecoming, but because the 100th last year was postponed, and you add the 100th and you allow people to come back and have homecoming, that's going to be one of the craziest weekends.
Now, Zach, why is Kansas scheduled on homecoming? I mean,
I think because blue and orange just look really good on programs. And
you know what's
TV.
funny? I love it because you always look at high school level, everywhere else too. Like, let's find this team that we have the 99.9% chance of beating. Homecoming, it's a big celebration. We hand them their heads on the field. We walk off, and it's a fun time because Kansas still has football somehow.
I wish that Oklahoma State would figure out and adopt the Alabama routine. Like play 2 non-conference games at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Take an open, and then homecoming, whether the end of October or beginning of November, schedule like Middle Tennessee State or something. Just schedule some scrub program and pay them a couple $100,000.
What's interesting is that with this non-conference, like Tulsa's you can't shake them anymore.
It's not a gimme anymore.
Yeah. Now Missouri State is.
Are you going to show up to that game wearing your maroon? Is that what they are, maroon?
Yeah, they're maroon, but believe it or not, like I never.
Really?
I mean, I followed Missouri State because they were only 30 minutes away, but I never. I mean, I went to more of their basketball games because that's where they were actually decent at times. Football,
baseball,
baseball's been great. Ryan Howard, awesome. But football's been a disaster forever, pretty much. So yeah, but
your lion head.
It was always funny because you had Missouri State and Mizzou battling each other all the time, and I was like, hey. What about us over here in Missouri Southern and Joplin? They'd be like, "Shut up, don't talk." But no, that'll be an interesting one. Missouri State will come in and get their heads handed to them. Tulsa is going to be not easy, and then Boise State. I don't know much about them, but to be honest, like they've made noise in college football before.
Well, they're typically the best of the group of 5.
Yeah, if you look through that,
I expect I think going to this will be the first trip that Oklahoma State's ever taken to the state of Idaho. And play Boise. But I'm looking forward to it. I think if you can get. I think if you get a traditional Oklahoma State team, what on paper this team looks to be really good, and obviously we haven't got to spring football yet. We know the returners, we know what they can do. We don't know what some of the newer guys are going to look like. The offensive line looks to be pretty solid this year. You add Danny Godlewski, you bring. You bring Josh Sills back. That's going to be huge. The running backs look to be good. Spencer Sanders, Shane Illingworth, that looks to be pretty solid. If you can eliminate turnovers. What is this? Turnover year or something? My God.
Yes.
But I think I don't think it'll be difficult in the sense of Oklahoma State has a chance to lose, like they're going to lose that game. But I think Boise poses a problem just because they'll be at home and year in and year out they're a pretty tough out. Like when they came to Stillwater a few years ago in 2018, there was a tough out.
Yeah, they got Oklahoma State got a couple of solid returners back on the defensive side too that you get with Colby and Malcolm. You go down the list, there's guys that are going to make a difference. The biggest, as you said, question mark is going to be, can Spencer Sanders, last year it didn't help that he started off and got hurt. I mean, I would have to hope that if this can be avoided, you come in, he has a big game against Missouri State, you follow that in, and you hope he's fully healthy, ready to go by the time Big 12 play rolls around in Kansas State, because as you said, not necessarily an easy out there by any means. It wasn't last year, and they didn't even have their starting quarterback in. So that was a weird game, man.
It was. Well, and you know what? You mentioned Missouri State, and I think that's where it's going to be weird, and it's going to add more weird fuel to the weird fire, because Spencer's not going to play the second half of that game. If all things go the way they should go, Spencer will be the starter going into the fall. We'll see Spencer for maybe 2 quarters and maybe the first drive of the second half, and they're going to put Illingworth in. And you're going to see Illingworth, and he's going to go out and he's going to put up 400 yards against a very, very substandard football team. He's going to go out and throw for 4 touchdowns, and we're going to go into Tulsa. And if they're now, I know that they're not going to have their Bednarik, can't even think of his name now. The linebacker.
Zaven Collins.
Yeah. My goodness. They're not going to have Collins next year, but I would have to think that Tulsa's still going to be somewhat decent, And as soon as Spencer struggles, because it's inevitable, every quarterback is going to have some kind of flub up. They're going to be like, why is he still in the game? We got a quarterback that threw for 400. Like, well, it's Missouri State. Take it with a grain of salt, And it's going to go for the whole season long.
Just wait till we get into Big 12 play, and if he goes through Kansas State and Baylor, then you get the bye week there on October 9th.
Well, I tell you, that bye week couldn't come at a better time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And if he doesn't have good performances there against Kansas State, Baylor, that's when you're really going to be hearing. Well,
Absolutely.
Shane's going to be coming in to start at Texas and at Iowa State because, like you said, that's a really tough couple of games there before you get Kansas.
I think 3 years into Spencer's career, this will be technically his fourth year in Stillwater, third year as a starter. I think if you're going, and I'm going to be optimistic because I like Spencer. He's a really good athlete, and he's had a lot of success wherever he is. But I'm thinking that if you go through Kansas State and you go through Baylor and you're struggling at home against teams that you shouldn't be struggling against, 3 years into being a starter, don't know how much longer you're going to be a starter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's all hypothetical.
Yeah.
That's if it happens. I don't have a lot of faith.
I hope he has a great spring. I hope he has a great.
He will.
I think he has a great camp and comes out and dominates against the non-con, and then comes in against Kansas State and Baylor and shows that he can hang. That's what you want to see. Yeah, and like you said, the turnovers early. That's going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Is he protecting the football? Is he getting the football out on time? Is he scrambling when needed?
Yeah, because they were bad turnovers.
Yeah, that's we dissected every single one, and people tried to make cases for him. There were no cases to be made most of the time. They were just bad throws. So he tightens all that up. The accuracy maybe tightens it up just a bit. The decision making goes in with the interceptions, all that. And those are things that can be fixed. This is all fixable because he has those attributes to make him a really good quarterback. True dual threat. The arm strength is clearly there. I want to see what he does this year without Tylan Wallace. That's going to be a big thing for me too.
Well, and Dylan Stoner.
Not only do you not have your guy that can catch anything you throw his way, Dylan Stoner's not going to be wide open in the middle of the field. Now you got some decent receivers to work with, right? We know there's some talent still out there, but there's not Tylan Wallace. And I want to see how he adapts to that early on, and that's a good opportunity to do so against Missouri State, against Boise State, Tulsa, get some other guys involved so we can kind of feel out who's going to have a big year at receiver. When we come back here on the afternoon sports drive, speaking of quarterbacks, because we've seen a bunch of different news about a bunch of different quarterbacks in the NFL, and drama just keeps on coming. Maybe one, though, that a lot of people didn't really expect. I'll give you a hint. He was just named the Walter Payton Man of the Year. We'll talk about Russell Wilson when we come back.
Yeah, run it back, tell him what I'm coming at. I was on the hit there, now I'm done with that. Scared of what I didn't want, scared of what I wanted, and thought that I was finished. But
this is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. Thursday, Frozen Edition here in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Just let it go, Patrick.
I can't.
As a Frozen joke.
I can't let it go.
I've never seen that movie, if I'm being
That was pretty
honest.
good, wasn't it? Did you hear
Yeah, I thought Elsa was in here with us.
that? Wow. Yeah. I know. Wait, did you say you never seen Frozen?
One or two. I don't want to see it. It looks really annoying.
I don't want you to think that
I've heard it's really, really good.
Oh, well, I don't.
Everyone that's seen it says it's one of the top 10 movies that Disney or Pixar has ever put out. So
guess.
if you've seen it and it's good, I don't judge you because apparently it is a really good movie.
Yeah, but I don't want you to think that I went out of my way to see this, okay? It happened on accident.
Don't lie.
That's
It's
all I'm
okay.
saying.
You don't have to lie.
I'm not lying.
This is a safe space,
It's a
Patrick.
safe space to be honest. I know, but I'm not lying. It was an accident, okay?
You just happened to.
Yeah,
You thought you were going to see Die Hard in theaters and it was Elsa.
Let's just say.
Why are there little girls wearing princess dresses in here? John McClane isn't a princess.
Let's just say that it came on the screen and there was nothing I could do about it, okay? I'll just leave that. I'll tell
Were
you
you
the story.
at the theaters?
I wasn't at the theaters. I'll tell you the story later on, okay? It was just interesting. That's all I'm saying. And
I see why you did it.
Well,
Our listeners know why you watched it.
and you know what?
We know what happened.
I actually sat through the whole thing.
I trust you.
And it was
I believe you.
okay, yeah, and it was.
I don't blame you either.
You don't blame me. You know,
I would have done it.
It was very well animated. I guess there were some funny jokes at times or whatever to keep the adult audience entertained.
So I will say this: I went to school for music. I had a full ride for music. I am still consider myself very, very talented musician, singer, and
Oh wow,
trombone.
oh
Yeah.
wow.
So good music gets me emotional. I understand it, and I really feel it on an emotional level. So when I was watching Ted Lasso, this isn't a big spoiler here, but one of the episodes, the team goes to karaoke. And one of the characters gets up, and she's a really talented singer, and she starts singing a song, and it was really good. It was really emotional. It was a hell of a song, and I was really starting to feel it, and it was Let It Go. But it wasn't like the Disney version. She was singing, and it was like, I was like, oh my God.
And like, insane cover.
That's my extent.
Okay.
And I was like, I got all choked up, and I was like, oh my God.
Well,
it's an emotional song.
You'd get more choked up listening to that than you would the actual movie. I'll tell you that. So
see, and that's why I don't need to watch it.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
I'm
miss
solid.
Anything. You didn't miss anything. And well, I don't know if there's been like a second or third one released, but
A second. There's
Yeah.
1 and 2. I do know that.
I know they made like $1 gazillion off of it, so whatever worked, I guess. I mean, that's pretty much all I gotta say about Frozen.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, man. If I owned a company like Disney, and like, you know what sells.
Oh
You
yeah,
know? And if Frozen, which easily was one of the most successful movies of all time, and it continues to be so, dude, make a second,
Make
and
a
if it's-
third,
and
make a
if-
fourth.
Why not, dude? Ride that gravy train. Ride that Frozen gravy train, dude. I tell
that
you.
Frozen gravy train.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, we were going to talk about Russell Wilson. I don't know how we got off on Elsa over here.
Russell Wilson lives up north. So it's cold up there, and he's married to Sierra, who can sing. Sierra, Frozen,
Oh, wow.
Frozen, Russell
Awesome
Wilson.
connection. You check and see if
5 degrees of Russell Wilson.
I was going to say check and see if
Frozen.
Seattle's actually colder than Stillwater right now.
It's
'cause
not.
I doubt
I think Stillwater's colder
Yeah.
than Alaska.
It's really freezing. So, all right. So, a source with the Seahawks today. So, we talked about it yesterday that Russell Wilson came on Dan Patrick's show when they were like, "Hey, dude, are you available?" And I think most people, probably the Seahawks too, were expecting that answer to be no. I'm a Seattle Seahawk. He was like, "I don't know. I guess that's a Seahawks question." And everyone was like, okay. So I thought that after that, because we got a report today that the Seahawks apparently are not happy.
No,
The source told Dan Patrick that they are not thrilled with
Well, again,
this.
see, it goes back to the same situation with David Montgomery. With him sending out that tweet yesterday, because he came back like 20 minutes later and he's like, hey, you guys took this wrong. I just love the city and all my
By the way,
friends.
did he delete that? Because I didn't.
I think so.
What was the tweet? What was the essence of the tweet?
The tweet was, and I sent it to you, I think, in a message.
I saw the one the backup where he was like, you guys took this too serious.
Yeah, he said, y'all took that completely wrong. It was intended in the purpose of football. It has nothing to, it was not intended in the purpose of football. It has nothing to do with ball. I love Chicago and I'm ready to be here for a long time. It was like, I've made a lot of friends in my time in Chicago. It basically was like, I've had a lot of fun here, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, okay.
And less than 20 minutes later, he came back with that. And I guarantee you, he got a call from Chicago, and they were like, hey, what the hell's going on? You need to fix this. And that's why he sent that out.
Chicago Bears running back David Montgomery, who had a great season last year. I would have to think that this happens actually so many times. Where
for sure.
Social media is the worst thing for pro athletes, especially because
100%.
they go out and say one thing, and they can say whatever they want, just like the rest of us. But the team's going to be like, dude, like some of this stuff is private. I would think that's what the Seattle Seahawks probably said to Russell Wilson. Now, he may not have cared anyways.
Right.
But they probably one of two things happened. They either came up to him like, dude, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're not happy here? Maybe they had no clue. Like, are you serious? Like, it seems like you're not happy. What's going on? We've had these reports. Or they said, hey, man, that was all private. Like, we don't want that out there in the air. And you have to know that the worst thing that can happen here in franchises, for instance, when they see that their players, especially their star quarterbacks, are going on national talk shows, they're like biting their nails and holding on. They're like, please don't say anything.
Well,
we're going to have to make the news now.
That, and it all circles right back to James Harden. And I'm not saying that Russell Wilson is going to do that. I'm not, I guess I'm not even really saying that about Deshaun Watson, because we don't know if he's going to hold the Houstons completely hostage or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it goes back to Harden setting a terrible precedent, because if you're the face of an organization like Russell Wilson is, and that team stops and starts with you, if you go on national radio, a national television program, and say, I don't know, ask the organization. Russell Wilson very easily could have just been like, I've got a contract, you ask them if I'm not happy, and he very matter of fact, I'm happy here, whatever. But you ask them, every organization now is like, we have to do anything and everything to keep this person happy, because if they go on national TV and say they're not happy, all of a sudden it's a massive storm that we can't deal with.
Yeah, and we broke it down not too long ago about the impact that what James Harden did, and I'm sure that it certainly has teams all over the place thinking this could happen to us, right? Like, we need to, and I'm sure that they've revisited, a lot of franchises have with their players about what goes on, what's supposed to go on in their organization, and let's not turn into the Rockets. But it is really weird and strange to see this coming from Russ, because he's got this and has built this persona as the nicest guy in the NFL, right? Never says anything bad, never has anything blow up in the media about him that's negative, never has a bad word to say about anybody, even when he loses. But he comes on and says this. He basically threw his offensive line under the bus recently, talked about how they have to get better up front because he's tired of taking sacks all the time, right? He was taking like 400 sacks in his career, something like that, an absurd number. But I don't get the whole, that part right there really made me question what he's trying to do here. Because I don't get the whole let's go after the offensive line. Like, they're middle of the pack overall. But if you look and you watch him play, a lot of the times it's tough for me to blame the offensive line for some of the sacks that he takes. Like, we know he's super mobile, but man, he holds on to the ball a lot, really longer than a lot of quarterbacks ever would. And part of that is due to you've got long routes with those receivers, but still, he doesn't get rid of the ball a ton. He steps up too early sometimes and runs into sacks. So I don't think it's fair to blame the offensive line overall. If I were him and I said, you know what, I'm frustrated, and they don't seem to be caring or listening, or maybe the Seahawks expect me to still always be this super nice guy, nothing's ever going to go wrong, even if I feel like I need to get out of this situation. So he airs it out a little bit on national radio. But if I were him and I'm going after somebody, I would choose, hey, let's put the chips on the table here and let me go after Pete Carroll and this organization. Because you look back to this last year, the flip that he did from front-runner MVP to a guy who disappeared in that race was unbelievable halfway through the season, where he's throwing tons of interceptions. But the big part of it was, too, that Pete Carroll went back. Like, the whole mantra coming in this year, right? It was trending everywhere. Let Russ cook. That's what we kept hearing over and over. What did that mean? I mean, let him do his thing. Let him go out there and air it out. Let him run the offense. Let's not be a run-first style team here with this elite quarterback that we have. So they come in and they don't do that. They let him cook. He's on an MVP-type style season. They have DK Metcalf, who's arguably a top 5 receiver. Like, he's knocking on the door. He looks like a stud that can never be stopped. That was part of it, too. They stopped getting in the ball. There were a couple games where he was held without a catch or was like 1 or 2 catches. That's impossible. You can't have that happen. You find ways to get him the ball. You saw it in the game against the Rams. They had to force it over there and made bad decisions to try to get him the ball. So if I were Russell Wilson, I'd calm down about the whole offensive line thing. Let's not do that, man, because they have drafted offensive linemen. They have a few good ones. They haven't necessarily all panned out like they planned, but they've drafted quite a few since 2010 if you look back. So I don't understand this whole we got to go after them. This is a guy who just won the Walter Payton Man of the Year, right, which is the most prestigious honor in the NFL. They hold it higher than the MVP because it means, what you're doing off the field and all this stuff. And he's still living up to that. But it always comes off of when these guys, these personalities, I think of Tim Tebow, mm-hmm. I think of Russell Wilson, some of these guys that are just super nice in the league and never really say, Andrew Luck was probably in that category off the top of my head, Drew Brees for the most part. Those types of guys, it's always kind of awkward, I would think, to see them get riled up and to show frustration, especially in an internal problem like this with the Seattle Seahawks. I wouldn't have guessed coming out of it this year that Russell Wilson would air out things for everybody to see in the public and hear in the public instead of sitting back with Pete Carroll. And I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see what the Seahawks said to him. Were they really like, dude, what do you mean? Like, come talk to us. Like, why are you doing this? Let's avoid a James Harden get out of control here situation. Let's get this fire under control right now. But it was really strange to see Russell Wilson have all people do that.
Well, and I'd be curious to see what the conversations were before that. we don't know what the internal organization. We don't know the conversations that have happened. Maybe they've been talking for the past couple of months. Like, after the season was over, maybe they've been like, hey, listen, we need to change some things. I wasn't getting the protection I needed. I wasn't, the defense wasn't doing their part. Why we need to try to fix things. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll figure it out. And then there's just nothing. It's very possible that Russell could have just been like, you know what? I'm at the end. I can't deal with this anymore. Maybe if a guy that is not known for getting riled up and saying some things out in the public, maybe if I go on and I very passive aggressively complain a little bit, maybe some things will start to get done because they can't afford to lose me, and I know that.
And I think if Russ were being honest, like, what do teams love to put pieces around right now in the NFL? A star quarterback and a star receiver. You can piece everything else around that. And that's what they have in Seattle. If Chris Carson stays healthy, they have a pretty solid running back still. I know he's getting up there in years, but he's still pretty solid. You've got young guys behind him. You add to the defense a little bit. It's a team that they made the playoffs this year. I mean, they're certainly going to be in the mix, and it just got tougher, I think, in their division because you just added Matt Stafford to the Rams and got rid of Jared Goff, right? I mean, he's no longer there.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to this year. It'd be interesting to see if anything ever happens. I'm not sure that the Seattle Seahawks would actually go with this and say, fine, if Russ wants to go, let's get rid of him because they see what I just said. But if they don't get past this whole, and if Pete Carroll doesn't get past himself of this whole, we got to do things that aren't good for Russell Wilson. We have to change the game plan because it's what I want to do. And Russ was mad because he didn't get word on the offensive coordinator. He didn't get a say on that. He wants say on who they draft, right, and all this stuff. And I see a lot of people, this happened with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
A lot of people that quickly go to the idea of why should players have any say in all this? There comes a point where if you have a player that is your star, yes, at the same time, it's a balance. You want to be the organization. You're like, we're the organization. Our foot's down. What we say goes. You're our employee. Yes, but we've seen the leverage that these athletes are now starting to learn how to use, and you can't risk putting a guy like Russell Wilson and putting him out of the conversations, neglecting him when it comes to listening to. That's all you had to do, right?
Yeah.
I feel like organizations maybe don't do this enough. Listen to your players. That's it.
Yeah,
just appease them.
Don't allow them to make decisions.
No,
but put
give
them in the conversation.
Right. I mean, we heard this
Take
past
his
year
input.
that they looked at the Chiefs, for instance, looked at the running back, and they said, Patrick Mahomes, they said, who do you want to be your running back?
Yeah.
I mean, you think that isn't great for team camaraderie there? It's something as little as saying, hey, Russ, who would you like to? Let's take a look at the draft.
What
Who's someone that who's someone that you circled here, or what style of offense are you maybe feeling? We kind of make some tweaks to this season, and none of that's happening. And Pete Carroll's being all, hey, it's my way or the highway thing. I don't necessarily put it past Russ to do what he has to do to get out of a bad situation for him.
No, and that's the thing. I think that's the most important thing because put yourself in that situation. You're the face of an organization. You're making money like you're the face of that organization, and your play and your offense dictates winning or losing. And so you have a certain style of offense you like to run. You have a certain style of play, and they go out and they get an offensive coordinator that is polar opposite of what you are. Now, you could go out and get polar opposite you could go out and get polar opposite personality because that could be good. That could draw out, subtle differences that you weren't, displaying out on the field. But if the style of play is run only, or you're great at RPOs and it's a traditional drop back, no shotgun or anything like that, why would you want to continue to do that?
Yeah.
Why would you, you've got certain receivers, certain style of receivers you like to go after. Why would you not want to continue to play with those receivers? Now, if you were a quarterback that won 6 games last year, the organization is not going to care.
No.
You can't win with good receivers. You can't win with bad receivers. But when you're a top 5 quarterback like Russell Wilson,
and a Super Bowl champ,
go and get what the man wants.
That's why I think part of it, too, is if you look at the style that Pete Carroll's implementing here, he's been blessed with elite running back talent since he's been there, right? I mean, Marshawn Lynch,
Should have had two Super Bowls.
Yeah, one of the best. And the time he should have ran the ball, he didn't, right? He screwed up. Now you had Chris Carson come in, who really kind of exploded on the scene and gave you that. Other than the health issues, he's given you a lot of downhill running style, hard-nosed runner who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And you've been spoiled by using him as a workhorse. Well, guess what? Running backs age, and they have tread that goes on them, wear and tear. Guess what happens with a quarterback like Russell Wilson? He gets to extend his career because of how good he plays, and that's kind of what he's doing right now. So I get it. He's from a standpoint of if things aren't going his way and he's expressed concern and nobody's listening, which I don't know if I completely believe that nobody's listening, but they're not listening enough to where they're going to change things up for you to where you can fit that play style, then yeah, you have every right to be upset. But I disagree with going out and saying my offensive line is my main issue here. Like, come on, man. The coaching staff has put you in a bad spot. You cause a lot of your own sacks, so don't go out on a limb there and try to throw your entire offensive line. By the way, think about that coming in this offseason. He comes back with the Seahawks, and what was the offensive line say in the locker room? Dude, like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Now he's got to go in there and be like, I didn't mean it, guys. I didn't mean it like this. Please go out there and protect me. Don't let me get sacked or break my leg, right? It's just a lot of things. I think he's playing with a little bit of fire here, but you can see both sides. It'll be an interesting story to follow as the quarterback drama rages on. Russell Wilson is the latest to get his name involved. When we come back, it's always funny because we get the year awards in the NFL right before the Super Bowl. And usually the Super Bowl kind of overshadows the awards that are handed out. You get MVP, you get Walter Payton Man of the Year, comeback player, rookie, right? All that stuff. But there was one interesting storyline that didn't involve the MVP Aaron Rodgers. It involved the comeback player of the year, Alex Smith. And we're going to get into that here around at hour number 1. This is the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Whoa. Staring as I go, I gave until my soul hurt, never told them so. They're watching as I fall, somewhere down below. Maybe I'm just falling to get somewhere they want, get somewhere they want.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network of Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster live here in Stillwater, back in studio. We get ready to round out this first hour. All right, so I had some beef because I agreed with the awards for the most part. The end of this NFL season, MVP, yes, went to Aaron Rodgers for sure. Josh Allen got 2 more votes than Patrick Mahomes. It was 4-2. I mean, he played his tail off, but statistically, Mahomes had the better. I mean, I see why. Like,
yeah,
you add in the
bigger impact.
You add in the rushing total and maybe the bigger impact. Whatever. I'm sure that we'll
didn't pick my guy.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll see next season that. And had Mahomes played better in the Super Bowl, he probably would have done the whole counting off the fingers. Who knows? But anyways, with that all being said, we also knew that comeback player of the year was as sure as it's ever been for anybody. The second that Alex Smith took a step back on the field this year, of course, then he took it to the next level where he eventually became the starter for Washington.
Won some games.
Yeah, his the quarterback situation there was a disaster. He came in and shirted up for a little bit, and tried to stay as healthy as he could. Will he retire? Will he come back and play? Who knows? But he gets comeback player of the year, rightfully deserved. Obviously, I mean, we've profiled it a ton here, as a lot of other people that. He almost died, 17 leg surgeries, could have lost the leg, said no, don't amputate, we're going to get this done. He rehabs and then gets back out and plays the most physical sport there is, most dangerous sport there. Like, are you serious? It's unbelievable. So why am I upset? Well, all but one persons that voted for this award voted for him. Instead, there was one that said, let me go ahead and vote for, drumroll, Big Ben, to be comeback player of the year. And it got a lot of people, and I was one of them. Like, because this was nothing but to stand out, And there was speculation on who it was. Haven't seen any confirmed reports on that, but there was speculation. But this was nothing other than standing out and attempting to be different in this one. If ever there was an opportunity for everyone to come together and do the right thing here, it was for everybody to vote unanimously. It wasn't even close. Big Ben comes back and from an injury and starts off 11-0 and was a part of that, obviously. He wasn't the main part of it. The defense played incredible. Then he falls off towards the end of the year, and he gets his butt kicked by his rival, the Cleveland Browns, in a really embarrassing fashion. Twice. And, I mean, are you kidding me? So then they come in here with this one, and they're like, Big Ben's going to get comeback player. I'm going to vote for him. Like, dude, there's a time where what Alex Smith's story should have done, for most people it did, was it brought everybody together in football and said, man, that's unbelievable, right? You rarely hear of a story like that. You rarely hear of any type of comeback effort. You may never hear anything like it again. But it seems to me, Zach, that this was one guy that just had to do it for clout, as they say.
Absolutely. Yeah, no cap. I think if it had been a normal year with no Alex Smith comeback after, the dude should have died. He should have lost his leg. He should have never walked again. Like that. If you watched the show, if you watched his E60, I didn't have any allegiance towards Alex Smith. I didn't watch him before he got injured. It sucked that he got injured. The biggest thing for me were the coincidences that had happened, like the same day, same style of injury as Theismann. I mean, that's insane. But when you watch that episode, you watch that Alex Smith documentary, it's one of the most emotional, heart-wrenching, heart-gripping, shows that I've probably ever seen. I mean, it was insane. And in a normal year, no Alex Smith, sure. I think Big Ben maybe not deserves comeback player.
He would have received multiple votes.
He would have received several votes, and I think that's fair. You look at his performance. Yeah, he came back. He probably shouldn't have played this year. He probably should have retired. He's probably going to play another year or two, maybe, thinking he can do what Tom Brady can do. He can't. Yeah. But there's absolutely no reason, no excuse that this guy voted for Big Ben and not Alex Smith. And I tell you, if it ever comes out, and it's this is the guy that did, or this person is the one that voted, male or female, I don't know. This person is the one that voted for Big Ben. Like, if it's not a paper ballot, if it's electronic, I clicked Alex Smith, and it came up Big Ben, and I couldn't change it. I emailed him, and it's a technicality. I don't know what it was. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way this person will ever admit that they did this, and this is the reason why they did it, and they'll never be vindicated for it.
Zero reason to not give him unanimous comeback player of the year. The second he stepped on that field, that award was won.
Absolutely. I mean, even if he never played, like if he came back and he was cleared for athletic competition, and the Washington football team brought him back, they opened up a spot and he was the backup quarterback. As soon as he walked out there for pregame warmups and started throwing the ball around and running drills, comeback player of the year. I don't care if he ever played a snap.
No, yeah, Cam Newton could have got the Patriots back to the playoffs.
And won a Super Bowl. Cam Newton could have won a Super Bowl, and he still would not have deserved it over Alex Smith.
I think Big Ben could have gone 16-0.
Big Ben could have won a Super Bowl, and it would not have done, it had not had any impact anywhere near what Alex Smith did this year.
Insane. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. Caller, you got a couple of seconds here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, that's all it's going to take. If Big Ben would get up off his butt in the off season, he would never be in a position where he would be a comeback player because he wouldn't have the injuries, because he never trains. He has never come back in good shape from the off season in his career. So that's on him.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think it is. I mean, he comes back, and like I said, he was instrumental in what they did. But are you kidding me? You take the defense away, and they're 11-0? No. I mean, they come back, and they got Bud Dupree's injury, and they fell apart. And they couldn't do anything. He was a big part of what they did. The receivers couldn't do enough to help Big Ben. So, yeah, he was a part of it, but still, I agree. He hasn't done enough in the offseason at times. And what Alex Smith did is 10 times anything that Big Ben's ever done in terms of rehab, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. No, he's right. The caller's right. I mean, That's why I go back to it being a whole attention thing. Now, it'd make more sense if the guy put out his name. Oh, I wanted attention, now I got it. Like, people go over to his Twitter page, and while they are roasting him on Twitter, they hit the follow button too, and that was the whole goal, right? I mean, it's just insanely ridiculous. Other awards, though,
that's why it tells me that he didn't do it for clout. He didn't do it for that, because it's been nearly a week, and we still, like, if that was my main goal, if I were the voter and my main goal were to take my Twitter following and raise it by 15,000, maybe get looks from other because there's going to be publications out there that are like, dude, you're edgy. You have some crazy takes, but you're a really good writer. You're solid at this, you're solid at that, but you're not afraid to ruffle some feathers. What are you making? You're making this? Okay, well, we'll tack on 15% to your salary and we'll extend the contract by 2 years. What do you say? But nothing. Crickets. Yeah. It's worthless.
That dummy should.
He's like the Heisman. He's like the Heisman voters that just, I don't like this person because he was arrested for this. So you're not the best player. I'm not voting for you.
What it probably
you deserve to have it removed.
What it probably was is some old guy who's covered the NFL for a billion years, and he's like, I swear, if you compare what he did and what Alex Smith did, and I looked more into it than anybody else, he deserved it.
He's the guy that sent in a blank ballot to the major league.
Yeah, same guy that turned in a complete blank ballot.
He's 78. He can barely. He still uses like a Windows 95. Carries a typewriter to games.
Oh, you mean Big Ben from this year?
I love that clock.
Oh man, hey, even whoever it is, he got a good roast in here. That's all that matters. Well, we come back in the afternoon sports drive. Buy or sell is coming up. Also, we have more. Speaking of quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, the destination for him may be down to one team if he gets traded. But I'm gonna guess that a lot of people won't guess who that team is. That's coming up. The afternoon sports drive.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wondering why it's so cold. Why you so icy cold? My tears can't drip. Sitting awake alone, tattoos I miss. If I was to call your phone, I know you'd click. Maybe can I the throne, I call it.
Welcome back in. This is hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive with Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. Thursday edition. Live from the Triple Play Sports Radio studios here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And to start off hour number 2, we're going to get into some buy or sell.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You'll pick up the phone and you'll sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the afternoon sports drive.
Make money, make money.
Buy or sell afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster. All right, Zach, what you got going on today for me?
I'm going football.
Always a fun topic.
And now this is the ultimate, way too early. This is right up Tom's alley. Super, super hypothetical. We don't know what anyone's going to look like. But Oklahoma State dropped its complete 2021 football schedule today. Shortly after the Big 12 announced their football schedule. So you look at home games. You've got Missouri State at home. You've got Tulsa at home. You have K-State at home. You've got Baylor at home. You have Kansas at home. And you've got TCU at home. Buy or sell that Oklahoma State is 6-0 when they are undefeated at home going into Bedlam the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I looked through that a few times. In Missouri State, Tulsa should definitely be wins. I think, again, you don't underestimate Tulsa, but you can beat them for sure. Kansas State, I think it's going to be closer maybe than some people would think. Now, last year we did the same thing. We said they were coming in with a backup quarterback, freshman quarterback, and we're like, we're going to take care of them. And that one, as we know, a lot of things had to go right for Oklahoma State to win that game. So you might circle that and say maybe put a star by that one and go back and check it. But I think they can win that one. Baylor, I don't really know what to expect from Baylor at this point. Charlie Brewer's gone, right? I mean, they looked terrible when they came in and played Oklahoma State. Now, I know that it was a season where they couldn't stop dealing with COVID, and clearly that was a team that was completely disinterested in that ball game. So I would probably say that they could beat Baylor too. I'm glad Texas and Iowa State isn't here for this buy or sell because then I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm not sure you can win both those games back to back. Kansas win, and then TCU is where I circle because Max Duggan gave us problems, right, this past year. And this is a TCU squad that, what is it about TCU and Oklahoma State? Basketball now too, football, where they seem to have a little bit of a number on OSU. So that's more of the game where I'm looking at that point too, November 13th. You've already dealt with Texas. You've already dealt with Iowa State. You have Texas Tech coming up, which is never an easy one. At West Virginia is never an easy one either, right before TCU. So 6-0, doable, but I'm not sold on TCU. Okay. That's the game I'm gonna. If I have to go with it now, I'm gonna say not 100%. I want to know, and a lot of it goes back to what I said because you had. Yes, they weren't healthy all the time, but you still had Chuba and you still had Tylen this year. You had Dylan Stoner. If I want to see what this offense does without them. I know the running game should be good. I mean, it should be serviceable. Yeah. We saw that. We got a nice taste of that late in the season. They have guys there that can fill in. Receiver-wise, it's going to be the biggest thing for me. What can Spencer Sanders do without an elite receiver and Tylen Wallace over there? Who's going to step up and fill some of that role? Will it force the ball to be spread out a little bit more? I would have to think so. And what's that offensive line going to look like? If they're healthy at that point, which a lot of times at, what would that be, November 27th, you're asking a lot for your offensive line to be fully healthy. It didn't take long for Oklahoma State to have to deal with those issues. So I think there's maybe too much at going against them possibly here for me to go ahead and say 6-0. However, like you mentioned there early on in the show, with those games at Texas, at Iowa State, you get a chance where you certainly could go 6-0. In terms of favorable schedules, you got the teams you want to be in Stillwater this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's it's. I thought it was an interesting buy or sell because the games that Oklahoma State has at home with the players that are returning this year, they're very winnable ball games. If I'd have said undefeated going into Bedlam overall, that'd have been a much tougher pill to swallow. I think they're better than West Virginia, but it's in Morgantown. That's always a tough game. Yep. Texas Tech, if that game would have been in Lubbock this past season, what would that impact? What would that ending would have looked like? Would Oklahoma State have gotten the kickoff return? Would they have gotten the fumble recovery or the interception return for a touchdown? At Texas, I think Oklahoma State obviously has Texas's number. I don't think Texas is back until they prove they're back. But they're always a tough out. And in Austin, it's going to be tough. Iowa State, that's tough. I don't care if it's in Stillwater. That's going to be a tough game. But Missouri State, Tulsa, those should be wins. Baylor, you looking at it, should be a win. I like it in Stillwater. Same with Kansas State. Kansas State's going to be tough. But in Stillwater, I like Oklahoma State's chances. Unless, Kansas State or Baylor comes out and, they're undefeated going into that game and they're top 15 and they look they just look unbeatable. Homecoming against Kansas, I don't even think you really need to look at that game. And I'm with you, TCU, that's a tough out. Max Duggan, he did give Oklahoma State a lot of trouble. Oklahoma State was kind of banged up towards the end of the year. You lose Rodarius in that game. You end up losing Tylen in that game. I think Trey Sterling left towards the end of that game. The offensive line was nicked up. Spencer had a couple of really untimely turnovers. The defense created turnovers. Well, Amen had 3 or 4 fumble recoveries in that ball game, and OSU still found a way to not secure a victory. So that'll be tough. But I like their chances in Stillwater. I like against these teams. I like Oklahoma State. I like Oklahoma State's chances against any team in Stillwater. The OU is going to be tough. I mean,
always.
But when you're in Stillwater, and especially if you can get, even if it's half capacity, you can get Boone Pickens rocking, I like their chances.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm hoping by that time, hopefully, with the rollout with the vaccines and everything else, that you can have close to a full capacity. OSU planned on it, right? They've already announced that they plan on that, so that'll be great. That will be great to see for sure.
I'll buy that. I'll buy 6-0 going into Bedlam.
Yeah,
I don't know about Texas. I don't know about Iowa State. Those are going to be 2 tough outs, and they're going to be tough outs back to back. West Virginia could be a tough out. Going to Morgantown's always tough, and West Virginia's they typically put out a pretty good squad. You don't know what you're going to get from Texas Tech year in and year out. They could put up 100 points and give up 150 on the defensive side. So, the home gains leading into Bedlam, I'm confident, especially with the return. That's the big key, the returners. You mentioned receiver, and that's going to be interesting. But Tay Martin's coming back; he should have a better year. You look at Braden Johnson; he's really talented. You got Langston Anderson. If he can stay healthy, Langston Anderson is legitimate. I like, even though he's a Cowboy back, Austin Gerard. Everything on paper, Austin Gerard looks to be the real deal coming in. He's a JUCO transfer, looks to be really, really good. He'll be I guess he'll technically be a freshman because that year didn't really count. Rashad Owens, receiver out of San Antonio, really, really good. So Jonathan Shepard, if he can stay healthy, I like his chances on the outside. So there's certainly weapons, and every single year everyone worries. Yeah. You lose James Washington, what the hell's going to happen? Yeah. You lose Justin Blackman, what the hell's going to happen? You lose, now this one, same thing, Tylan Wallace. Who's going to step up? Casey Dunn knows how to develop receivers in Stillwater. So I'm not worried about that, but with the returners, I like their home chances.
I'm excited to see what Braylon Presley does too. With whatever he does this year. Speedster.
Can't even believe I looked can't even overlook Brandon Presley. Yeah. With what he did towards the end of the year, 5'8", 175 pounds, doesn't matter. And I will say though, it's going to be interesting with Brennan is how he's scouted now, because going into that game against Miami, he had a touchdown against Kansas State, and that's really it. He didn't really do anything. Yeah. You put up 3 touchdowns against Miami? At least 2 touchdowns against Miami? 3, yeah, that's what I thought. Everyone is going to know who Brennan Presley
give him some
is
tape
in that
there.
slot. My goodness.
Yeah, Brennan. Yeah, sorry, not Braylon. Thinking of his brother there.
I'll tell you right now, Mike Gundy there just praying to the football gods that Braylon commits to Oklahoma State.
They would love to have him too.
Oh, he's so good.
All right, so with Oklahoma State taking on Kansas State, I thought that a player that really has at times excited me watching him has been Bryce Williams. And we didn't know what all to expect from him coming in out of Ole Miss this year, but there's been games where he's really poured it on. That biggest one when he had 17 points against the win against Kansas earlier this year. And the way he capped off that game was awesome. The dunks he had in that game was incredible. Since then, it's been a bit of a drop-off. He had 11 against Baylor, but then you look at the rest of these numbers, 4 at Iowa State, 6 against Arkansas, 11 against TCU, and 6 against Texas, and 3 against Kansas recently here. So he's averaging 7.9 points a game. Buy or sell that he cracks 10 or more, gets back in double figures against K-State.
I think he's got the chance. He has 8 double-digit games so far this year. Like you said, he had 17 and 11 against Kansas and Baylor. He put up 11 against West Virginia. He put up 13 earlier in the year against Texas, 15 against Texas Tech. Bryce Williams is certainly electric enough to hit double-digit figures, but he's dipped. Like you mentioned, 4 against Iowa State, 6 Arkansas. He had 11 against TCU, but ultimately that didn't matter. He had 6 against Texas, and he only had 3 against Kansas this past time out. So that just means he's due. I think you get him back at home. You get in a situation where should be a win against Kansas State, but I mean, if you get the Kansas State that took Texas to the wire and only lost by 3, I think you see Bryce rise to that occasion. I hope. I certainly would have bought if you'd have said if he has 1 breakaway dunk on a steal, I'd have bought that in a minute.
Yeah.
But double digits, I think that I think it's a stretch, honestly. I think I'm going to sell, but I think he gets close. I think you get anywhere between 7 and 9. You know, he might rise up late and hit a big bucket for you, hit a big three that might push him over that double-digit edge, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I'll sell it, and I think he gets anywhere between 7 and 9. He gets close to 10.
I think I'll buy against Kansas State. I believe was the game he went out early too because he had the
6 minutes.
Yeah, he had the headache. I believe was bothering him, and he didn't play anymore in that game. So we didn't really get to see him do much. He had one shot attempt in that one before he left. So I think that he has that ability here. This is a game where Oklahoma State's going to spread it out, and he's going to be a recipient of that. There's been times this season where his three-point shots looked really good, right? He's hit 3 threes multiple times this year in a ball game, and he's not afraid to take that shot. And when he gets in a bit of a rhythm, that's when we really see him kind of start to heat up. Once he sees a couple go through, and he really can take over a game through segments. You know, not fully at times. Right. He can be the guy on both ends of the floor. We've seen him hustle and make good defensive plays this year too.
Yeah, how many blocks is he?
Yeah,
would he like lead the country in blocks guys under 6'3" or
right,
something?
Yeah. So he with his size, he's rising up and making plays on the basketball, which is great. So I think he's going to do it. I would say 10. Maybe just over that, but I think he gets there. We'll say 10 at the minimum.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. You know, it's very feasible. It's very possible that he can hit that. You know, because he's good to rise up and give you a 3 late or hit you 2 threes or get a breakaway dunk or 2, and he's also pretty solid from the free throw line. So it's very possible. That he eclipses that 10, and I'd be okay if I missed it.
I know you would.
I'm okay with missing that one. So I'm also going to stick with basketball. I'm going to go Isaac Likely, though. It's a guy that's been at the center of the talk since we found out last week that he's been banged up the past month and a half. We talked to Tom yesterday what he thought was what his thoughts were on Ice if he was going to play against Kansas State, and I agree with him. Ice is not a guy, if he can go, whether he's in pain or not, if Ice can go and there's really no threat of further injury to that foot, he's going to be out there. There's no question about it. I still think he needs to set on Saturday just to really shore up his foot, getting into that really tough stretch. Even starting with Iowa State, these are going to be. I think they'll be tough games. They're very winnable games, but they'll be tough. But I would like to see him set at least on Saturday. But buy or sell, Isaac Likely plays at least 30 minutes against Kansas State on Saturday.
Yeah, looking through his list, he's only not played 30 minutes 3 times this year, and 2 of those were 28, so he's pushing it every single time. He only played 22 against Texas Southern. But this would be the game that if he told me he's still good to go, I'd listen for sure.
Sure.
Iowa State, I'd be more like, nah, dude, like, let's get you a rest here before we hit this stretch because we need you down the stretch. So even if he plays here against Kansas State, which I believe he will, I think he'll be limited. 30 minutes. Yeah, and this is a team that they could probably do less than 30 minutes with him and still win this game. So I guess I'll sell that he plays at least 30 minutes. I think they'll probably keep him limited under that. What production they get out of him remains to be seen in that amount of time. I'm not expecting an explosion by any means. He had 10 points last game, I think, right?
That's the most since Kansas, the 1st of January.
Yeah, that's really so. Yeah, 9, 7, 7, 4, 2, and then 10 against Kansas. And back against Kansas State earlier in the year, he had 15. Yeah. So, he certainly has gotten his chances there. I'm going to sell it. I don't think he gets that 30-minute mark, and they need a fully healthy Isaac Likely before we come around and hit this stretch after Kansas State and Iowa State.
And that's why I think it's so important that he doesn't play a full workload in this game. I'm with Frank. Frank said on Tuesday I would start Ice, and maybe play him a little in, half the first half and maybe a little bit in the second half. But you give him a whole week. They played Monday, they haven't played since, and they're not going to play till Saturday. I think you rest him on Saturday, and then that gives him all the way back up until Tuesday. That's 8 days that he will not have played in an actual game. I'm sure he's out there practicing. But I think it'll be situational. I think that if Oklahoma State is in control of this game, and it's very evident that they're in control of this game, and they're getting production from guys not named Isaac Likely, then I think Ice plays less than 30. Okay. I don't think there's a reason to play him. But if Kansas State is in this game, and it's very possible that it is, a full, healthy Kansas State team is more dangerous than the Kansas State team that they played back in January. But if Kansas State's in this game and they need Ice on the floor and he's able to go, then I think he'll play more than 30 minutes. Now, I don't think it'll be 46 like he had against Texas in double overtime, but you look at these games since he got hurt, and they haven't been as much. Like 39 against Baylor. He had 28 against Iowa State. He had 32 against Arkansas, 28 against TCU. Texas was an anomaly. That was huge, a 46, a career high. But then he barely clips 30 against Kansas, 32 minutes. So if they're in control of that game and they don't need his production, less than 30. Yeah, but if they need him, even if he's just a body on the floor going for assists or steals or blocks or whatever, he'll play more than 30.
All right, so we know that the big guys will have chances. That they're certainly going to have opportunities against Kansas State. That includes Caleb Boone. Buy or sell that he grabs a double-double against Kansas State. We've seen him be good for that a couple of times this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I certainly like Oklahoma State's chances. I like his chances, and I like M.A.'s chances if M.A. is more healthy than he was. Kansas State, I think Davian Bradford has a chance to be decent in this league, but he's not right now. He's a body down low, and I'm not knocking him. But, I mean, we look at what Caleb has done since bouncing back against Baylor with 21 points, and he's only had 2 games where he's really struggled against TCU, and he's, struggled in the second half against Kansas. But he did really well against Texas, and they had a really good big man, and he did well against Arkansas. They didn't have a beefy big man, but they had a 7'3". That's a big dude. Kansas State doesn't have that. Kansas State doesn't have Texas big men. They don't have Kansas big men. So I'll buy it. I think Caleb is obviously, after the performances that he had, to be benched nearly the entire second half against Kansas. That's frustrating. You're getting your lunch ate down low on both ends of the floor. I'll take what Boynton said at face value, and Caleb just didn't have it in the second half. Even if he's not in the doghouse, you have to think that after having such good performances for the past, nearly a month, getting benched and not playing well against Kansas is going to be enough motivation to come back home against a team that's not super solid down low, be able to record a double-double. It won't be career highs, but I think 10 and 10 is very doable.
Yeah, he's going to get in there in double figures in points for me. He only had 3 rebounds against Kansas State earlier this year. Yeah. So that's, I expect that number to be a lot higher.
Absolutely.
And think about it, too. If Ice, which I would have to, if I were putting money down, would say he's going to be limited, if that's the case, more rebounds are going to be free, and they're going to Caleb Boone.
And even if he's not, you look at Caleb down low. I'll use a Texas game. How many second chance rebounds did he get off of misses?
Oh yeah,
off his own misses.
I'm saying a lot of his best offense is off a miss. That's
Absolutely.
for sure. So yeah, I'll buy it. I think he can get that. What else you got?
I'm sticking basketball, and I'm sticking Kansas State. Buy or sell. Cade hits 2 or more threes against Kansas State.
Buy
because
all
we
day.
Saw him really figure it out against Kansas late when they needed him.
Well, and you look back at what happened against Kansas State for him earlier this year. Worst game, right? I mean, didn't do anything. He was not a factor in that ball game at all, and it was kind of strange to watch that. He only took 3 shots. Like what? And that's where we kind of talked about. Even though they won that game, it's like, dude, hey. You got to have – that was where we were still like, you got to shoot more, So that obviously hasn't been an issue since going forward. But I would go ahead and buy that easily because the 3-point shots will be there, especially late. As of late, ironically enough, he's been making them deep in games when you need them, even if a guy's throwing in. And they're going to have the same game plan as Kansas State did earlier in the season. Say, hey, we held them to 3 here. Let's do it again, even though that's not going to happen.
I'm going to need a faction of Oklahoma State students to wear purple to that game and start chanting overrated.
Yeah, get them hyped up. Get them excited like they've been doing. And, he'll crack that. He's going to finish with 3 to 4, maybe past that.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe past that.
Maybe past
okay
that.
With that. He was 3 of 5 from the 3-point line against Texas. He was 4 of 8 against Kansas, and I'm going to guess that those defenses are just a touch better if not a little bit more than a touch better than the defense he's going to see on Saturday against Kansas State. I think Cade is very easily. I think Cade is very easy for at least 2 made threes in that game, because you go back to that. He had 3 against Kansas, 2 against Arkansas, 2 against TCU, 3 against Texas, 4 against Kansas. I'll buy at least 2, and I think he's good for maybe 3. 4 or more might be pushing it for me, I think, but 2 to 3 is very manageable buy.
All right, so quarterback drama continues, as I mentioned. Now, Carson Wentz is one of the hotter stories. Where is he going to go? Because it looks like the Eagles are ready to part ways. And I think Carson Wentz is ready to part ways.
Yeah.
After this year, he gets benched for Jalen Hurts, and it just was a terrible season. The list of teams, there's been a couple of front runners that have emerged. The Indianapolis Colts and, lately, the Chicago Bears. Now, there's been reports that they want to trade for him, obviously, but they're not willing to sell the farm to get Carson Wentz. And I can't say I blame them. But at the same time, for me, it's like, really? The Bears that had Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles and couldn't figure, and neither of them were going to get it done. The team that's arguably been the disaster in terms of quarterbacks for the longest number of years now wants to get Carson Wentz and thinks he might be the answer. So buy or sell that he actually, where he ends up is going to be the Chicago Bears.
No, I'll sell that. I mean, if Chicago is not willing to give up, they're not willing to sell the farm. I think Carson Wentz is a quarterback that views himself as farm selling material. I think if an organization isn't willing to do anything and everything it takes to get you, then I feel like he's not going to go. I don't think he's in Philly. I do think he winds up somewhere other than Philadelphia and Chicago. But I'll sell Chicago because it doesn't make sense. I get that he played in North Dakota, but played in a dome, so it's not like he's used to playing in super, super cold outdoor Chicago weather. And it's not like Chicago is on the cusp of being good. If they had an offensive line that could protect him and they had receivers that were talented enough, but they were just young and needed a few more years to really get there, and their defense was super, super solid, then it would make sense. But it would be like him wanting to get traded to Houston. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then the playoffs this year, we knew they had no business being in the playoffs this year. Now, their defense, pretty good. Depends on what they can keep on that side. David Montgomery seems like he could be really solid at running back.
If he comes back.
Who knows what his tweet was about, if he's even going to come back, what the deal is there. But the reason I'm going to buy it is because the Bears continue to show they have no idea what they're doing at that position. Moving up to get Mitch Trubisky, taking him early. Okay, stupid decision. You passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Really? That's like, that right there can just do a franchise in.
That's worse than losing 4 Super Bowls in Buffalo.
That's pretty terrible. Then you manage to say, okay, Mitch Trubisky's going to give him a chance this year, but actually let's halt that and bring in Nick Foles. Okay, Nick Foles hasn't been good since he beat Tom Brady. That's the highlight of Nick Foles' career, right? He washed out
man on the planet.
Yeah, he washed out in Jacksonville. And when his career is all said and done, he's going to look back at that Super Bowl and say, I did it. And that's it.
I got millions of dollars. I won a ring, baby.
I'm on the list of Super Bowl champions somehow, Nick Foles. Yeah, unbelievable. So that was a bad idea. They try to put now, while Mitch Trubisky showed a little promise here and there at the late part of the season, still, really. And bring in Carson Wentz, and they think, oh, now he's been around. This guy knows. If we give him a couple weapons, think of it too. Allen Robinson's going to be a free agent. He's your best receiver by far. There's nobody even close, and he's not going to be there next year. It's a disaster waiting to happen, but guess what? The Bears have never not fallen away from disaster. So I could see them pulling the trigger. There's been word, though, that the Eagles are not willing to give up anything else with this. Well, you think the Colts and the Bears are going to be good with just getting Carson Wentz? You got to sweeten the deal a little bit here. And there's been a lot of talk about these teams that have been really disciplined in terms of trading for Carson Wentz. Because guess what? 1, they're not going to give up the farm. 2, they're not going to take just Carson Wentz. Sprinkle in a couple of other players there because he's not good enough to be traded solely. I'm sorry, he's just not. It's kind of a disaster for him. He goes from the Eagles to the Bears.
Yeah, they got better pizza in Chicago.
And there's one upside. Your defense maybe improves.
And you got
but
that
my
weird
goodness.
alien bean.
Yeah. Is that, you ever been there? Stood
No.
there? I stood at that once, and I still didn't get the whole hype of it. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind going to Chicago.
It was all right.
I want to go pre-October, post-March.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Went dead in the middle of summer, so it was pretty warm.
That'd be okay.
Yeah, it's still,
okay with
still
that.
good. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Carson Wentz. Interesting storyline to follow there. When we come back, quarterbacks have been the topic of the day. Deshaun Watson, reportedly, from a very trusted NFL insider, there's only one team that he's going to be traded to. Find out who that is next.
Today met my doom, took one in the boiler room. Put food on the table of a dying breed man. Once I was a broken heart, once I tore your heart apart. Once my heart put out before I ever got to breathe. My soul returned to seed, come to earth again.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster. So the sweepstakes for Deshaun Watson have been crazy since we figured out that he doesn't want to be there. And initially there was a couple of front runners, and the Miami Dolphins were definitely at the top of that list. Well, veteran NFL insider John McClain said today, covers the Texans, said if Deshaun Watson gets traded, it will only be to the New York Jets, out of all teams. Now, they were thrown in there at the beginning, too, for whatever reason. Now, but based on what the Texans want, that's what I mentioned to you last week, that makes sense. If they want the 2 first-round picks, the second-rounders, and a couple of young defensive players, the Jets could make that move, right? They could definitely do that. But they're asking themselves, okay, we either do that, and we basically just get Deshaun Watson out of this, or we take our first-round pick, we grab Justin Fields or whoever, Zach Wilson, most likely going to grab a quarterback. I would have to believe that's probably the case, and go from there and use the rest of our picks. We grab an offensive lineman down the stretch here, we keep going, we build up, and we build with our rookie quarterback. Or you just go, Deshaun Watson, he's been around. He could change things around. New head coach, we'll see. But for Deshaun Watson, it's like, dude, really?
Yeah.
What? You're telling me that you're good with because it's a rebuild. You're good with a rebuild. It's been a rebuild for a long time with the Jets. You're telling me that since Mark Sanchez, believe it or not, that's crazy.
Butt fumble.
Since butt fumble, they haven't been able to do anything. Okay, so Deshaun Watson goes over. That's why I don't believe, and I probably won't for a long time, unless things change. He stays in Houston, things change. If Deshaun Watson comes out and goes, my only goal is winning. BS, your only goal is winning if you're good with going to the Jets, because he has a say in this. Yeah, Robert Saleh, I expect great things out of him. I think he's going to be good for the Jets. I think he's going to help turn that organization around, because he's mainly a complete opposite of what Adam Gase was. Adam Gase was a coward who didn't know how to coach. Robert Saleh is a player's coach. He's going to tell you how it is. He's going to get his team in line, defensive-minded. That's great. But seriously, Deshaun Watson, wasn't his argument the whole time, wasn't a part of this, that he didn't have weapons, right? They got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. That's clearly upsetting. Well, who do you have in New York? Seriously, Jamison Crowder? Really? Are we going to go there? You don't even have a running back. Frank Gore was 1,000 years old last year.
He was still playing last year?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was their starter for the most of the season. Unbelievable. I just don't get it.
It doesn't, to me, if the organization is on the rebound, if management and the coaching system is going to be better than it has been in a few seasons, does Deshaun Watson give you the best chance to win immediately? Sure he does. But how long is Deshaun Watson going to want to stay there when he realizes the next 3 or 4 drafts they're not going to get anything unless they start trading away anyone else to try to get some draft picks? If you're the Jets and you don't land Deshaun Watson, it's going to suck for 1 year. But in 2 years, when all of a sudden your first-round draft pick and your second-round draft pick start to pan out, and you have better talent around where you could go out and get a better quarterback. Because You land Deshaun Watson, are you going to go to the playoffs? Probably not, because what do you have around Deshaun Watson? And Deshaun Watson's not going to want to stay for multiple years. So missing out on Deshaun Watson, yeah, okay. Wherever he goes next year, if he goes to New Orleans or wherever else he might end up, and they do really, really well, and then he ends up winning a Super Bowl in, say, 3 years, the Jets can't sit there and say, well, that could have been us, because you couldn't have been you. There's no way, because you don't have anything there now, and you're certainly not going to have anything for the next couple of seasons because you gave it all the way to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And then you lose Watson because he's not going to want to stay there, and then what do you got? Nothing. You're worse off than before you went and traded for Watson.
That's why the Texans, they've made it clear, like, we don't want to trade him.
Yeah.
But they've also got to decide, okay, if we don't send him over there, and let's say, because it looks like the Jets could probably honor everything they want.
Sure.
So, and they can use that. They can get a quarterback. All right, well, if they don't do that and they keep Deshaun Watson, then they do take the off chance. I would still be surprised. I know we've heard reports that he said that he wouldn't play, but I'd be surprised if that actually happened. You do take the chance that he refuses to play. And you're sitting there without a quarterback. So that's why the Texans probably are seriously considering this if the Jets are really interested. But Deshaun Watson's used to winning.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. He is. Now up to this season. And he goes to the Jets where it's just loss after loss after loss after loss. And you go in next year and you hope you can start building around that a little bit. Next thing you know, Deshaun Watson is 3 years into a rebuild, which is probably something he wants to avoid in Houston in the first place, I would think. It just doesn't make sense from him personally for what he wants to do with his career. I think if he were to go to the Jets right now with what they have there and how long it might take to develop talent there, not knowing for sure if Robert Saleh is going to pan out, not knowing for sure what the world's going on with at the top of the organization. If you go there, I think you're wasting your ability. You have a much better chance with how young he is and the elite talent he is to stick around in Texas and with the Texans, work things out with the front office. Yeah, you didn't get the head coach you wanted. Apparently, you didn't get the GM you wanted either. But you work things out with them. They add a couple of weapons. Will Fuller comes back healthy if he stays with the team, and then all of a sudden, you're still in the mix a little bit. There's a much greater chance of the Texans rebounding here in a quicker fashion than the New York Jets. I don't care who goes over there. I don't care if Patrick Mahomes goes over there. It's going to take a little while, right? It's unbelievable. So I just don't get this whole Deshaun Watson thing. I'm only going to go to the Jets. Come on, man. I really do. And I said this last week, but I question how much he values winning in the National Football League. It's fair to do that right now with the way he's been talking. When we come back here, we're going to tell you what we learned. This is the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox, now it's hands up every time that your man rocks. They ought to stop me coming in again. You mad? You thought we were synonyms? Too bad, that's a wall.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network with Patrick Wheeler and Zach Lancaster as we round out the show here on this Thursday live from the Triple Play Sports Radio studios. We're going to tell you what we learned.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter. Let's find out what the guys learned today on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, I learned something today.
Oh, this was a pretty big story yesterday and into today out of the NBA. The Dallas Mavericks were at the center of some controversy here. They decided to go ahead and stop playing the national anthem at their home games. And it wasn't told by owner Mark Cuban. There were employees that revealed this. Yep. And that's how it made the news. Everyone was like, oh, what? So the NBA came back and said, no, you're going to play the national anthem. It remains for me to be seen if they don't. Or is the NBA going to fine them? Is there going to be some punishment here where they refuse, whatever? That's what I'm looking out for. But to me, I'm like, man, thinking about this and the reasoning they gave, they feel as though the national anthem doesn't represent everybody that comes to their games and plays and all this. And I'm like, look, it's been a tradition in sports for a very long time. It's something that, because sports are, you looked at in the past, they've been the idea of a uniter for a lot of people. You could go there with any person, how different they are, doesn't matter compared to you. Different race, different gender, different sex, different whatever. Orientation, you were there for the same reason, cheering on the same team. So they were united. It only made sense. You throw in the national anthem and reminds you, United Nation, all that stuff. But it's like Mark Cuban didn't learn anything from this past year in the NBA. Mm-hmm. They went down in the bubble, but they dove headfirst into politics more so than we've ever seen. And the ratings reflected that wasn't the best idea. Now, I know some of the ratings were down because there were a lot of sports going on at the same time, and there were different reasons. But you had LeBron James in the finals, and he is the number one, the biggest draw in that sport. I would think, you get LeBron James in the finals, everybody would want to watch. That's just not the case anymore. A lot of it had to do with people didn't want to see any of that. They just want to see basketball. And I would think that Mark Cuban would learn from this and think for himself, look, I want people to watch my team. I should probably not do stuff like this. Maybe that's why he didn't say anything. Maybe he was just like hoping that wouldn't get out. But it did. And I think that it's a really, really dumb thing to do, if I'm being frank. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why it's such a huge deal. You're allowed to kneel if you want. You can do all that stuff. But now it's just like, let's completely do away with it. I thought it was interesting. The Dallas Stars said today, they're like, just so you guys know,
we're going to continue.
We'll always play the national anthem.
The owner of the Stars is Canadian.
Yeah. He said, we'll always do it because it shows pride for the country. Plain and simple. That's what it is. People have blown this out of proportion to me way too much. The whole flag thing, the whole anthem thing, that it means this and it means it. And it's pride for the country. You live here. That's what it is. Plain and simple. I think he's going too far here. Mark Cuban, it's funny too, his tone changed. A few years ago, he was completely against the whole kneeling for the anthem thing. My, how things have changed in a few years. That's what I learned.
I'll concede. That situation right there is a really precarious line to walk to, because if the players that are bringing in the money, like I can't imagine that every single player on that team feels excluded by the national anthem. I would have to think that it's probably a smaller portion. But you can't tell me that the 16 to 20,000 people that are going to end up being back in and what's crazy is they haven't played it all year. They're fans. They haven't played it. It was like 15 or 16 games they haven't played it. And they don't plan on, when fans come back, they don't plan on starting it back. I can almost guarantee that when fans come back, they are not going to be happy if they show up at the arena and you aren't playing the national anthem. It's like Oklahoma State or most college football teams. They'll play the national anthem, but they do it when the players are in the locker room, and I don't think that's not strategic. I don't think on the surface anyway. I'm sure there might be some kind of behind it, but the players they're not on the field. There is no room for incident because the players aren't anywhere to be seen. They're in the belly of Boone Pickens, and they can't hear it. Their locker room is soundproof, and they can't hear what's going on. But the players in the locker room.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you want to make your statement, then make it and don't have them out there. Yeah. Fine, whatever. Or the ones that want to go out there can go out there.
Pay the fine for the players to stay in the locker room. But you can't tell me that. Okay, keep your players happy. That's fine. But the people that show up and buy your merchandise and buy your tickets and watch your games and get you those TV ad dollars, it matters to them.
They alienated a ton of the fan base. I mean, the NFL did the same thing a few years ago. They flipped it around to where, yes, they were involved in some politics this year, but not to the extent of the NBA. And you think that was all on accident? That was completely designed. There's a reason that all that stuff was minimized, is to keep a fan base. And they still drew a lower crowd than normal for the Super Bowl. For instance, those numbers came in, and they weren't normal numbers. But you look at what the NBA has done in terms of, and the hypocrisy is glaring for what they've done for, representing and talking good about China, for instance. Okay, seriously? A lot of people don't. I mean, do people not understand what's going on in China right now? It's been labeled a genocidal country. I mean, seriously, what they're doing over there, the NBA takes money all the time, does all that, and promotes China. We can't have the national anthem playing? I mean, the true colors are showing here a little bit to me. That's what I learned.
I learned today completely different. way different than sports. Like, almost as different from sports as you can get.
Okay.
I learned today that there's going to be a Jackass 4 this fall.
Really?
And I cannot wait.
I don't think I've heard that yet.
Jackass
That's
4.
exciting news.
Yeah, and I only found out about it because Bam Margera is calling for a boycott of the film because he claims that he was unceremoniously fired from Jackass because I guess he was speaking out against it, and he was, and we all know that we might not all know. Bam Margera was in rehab for a while for mental health issues and drug use and alcohol and all this stuff, and so he was like, it was detrimental to my mental health, and then they fired me. So don't go and see it. And that's how I found out that there's a Jackass 4, and I am super stoked.
Oh man,
like they were saying that he's still in the credits. Like he's still listed on the IMDb page, but I guess he's not going to be in the film at all. But Jackass 4 coming this fall. You better believe that if everything is safe again, I'm gonna be in theaters. If there's one close by playing it, I'm gonna be there.
They never get old, man.
God, they're so good.
And you're right. Bam was never the same after Ryan Dunn passed away, and the way he
that's fair too.
That was tragic. He was his best friend. He was never the same. But Steve-O did the same thing. He got his rehab right and all this. He's been off.
Man, Steve-O.
He's been off drugs and alcohol for a long time now.
Oh, totally different person.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the one that Johnny Knoxville is always the one I'm just most favorite. Like, how are you still alive?
What was that? What was that film they came out with a couple years ago?
They did Bad Grandpa with him.
No, and there was that amusement park one.
Oh yeah,
like Point Park or Point Place Park or something like that, where he did all it. Like he had to go to the hospital because he like dislocated his muscles from his hip or something, like tore his muscles from his hip and like shattered a pelvis and just I don't know how you're still alive.
It doesn't make sense.
I don't get it.
Same was actually with Steve-O though too.
Oh
if you look what he's done, how is he alive?
What he's still doing?
Yeah,
strapping himself to billboards and jumping off of dams and bridges.
The Wild Boy stuff he used to do doesn't make sense that he's alive and breathing.
Listen, if you don't like Jackass, don't judge me because I love it.
It's hilarious.
I could watch it almost all the time.
Yeah.
Like Wild Boys, and then what was what was Bam's show?
Didn't he have like a skateboard thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had
He had a show on MTV.
Yeah, he did, yeah. They all went off and did their thing.
So good.
When I met Preston Lacey, I had a lot of questions for him that I had to throw out there. I was like, dude, how? Like specific, asking him about things.
I don't think you could pay me to do 90% of the stuff they do.
No.
But it would be impossible, I feel, to be on set and not have to change your drawers a few times.
Well,
how much you're
look at all the stuff they do to everyone that's just kind of watching, standing around.
Isn't that terrifying?
Yeah,
I want to be there, but I don't want to be there because I don't want to get punched in the face for no reason.
You would always have to have a wall behind you.
Yeah, I don't want to put firecrackers in my shorts. No, or you walk into the building and they got a giant hand that's going to knock me 15 feet back into the other room.
Oh, classic stuff, man.
But I'm going to watch it.
I can't wait.
I'm going to spend my money.
Oh, me too. They're taking mine as well.
Absolutely.
There you go. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. That's Zach Lancaster. I'm Patrick Wheeler. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with Levi Peckinpah. He'll join us to get you through into your weekend. So make sure to keep it locked here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.